the fountainhead of any kingdom. He is the one who gives the order. She is the one that makes the plan real. The king has made the plan. Now it is the queen who will start off with the execution. It is the knight that are executing the plan. So the knights can be likened to the doer. So when the order is given by the king and the making it real part is taken care of by the queen, and she passes it on to the knights who actually do the stuff, but what actually the development that is taking place, that development, the new development is represented by the pages. So the pages are our new development, our new ideas, etc. Aum Friends, welcome to our channel Zazen Tarot Space. We are starting a new series today on quote cards. When we had learnt about the structure of the tarot deck, we had learnt that there are two kinds of arcana. One is the major arcana and the other is the minor arcana. The major arcana refers to the more important and the bigger aspects or developments or events in our life, whereas the minor arcana, that talks about the smaller, everyday, more mundane kind of events and aspects of our life. Then we had also seen that the minor arcana is further divided into four suits, namely our suits of sword, cups, wands and pentacles. Friends, then we saw that every suit has got 10 cards starting from aces, moving on through the 2s, 3s, 4s and carrying on till the 8s, 9s and 10s of that suit. Friends, I had also introduced you briefly to the fact that there are 4 cards in each suit, which can be likened to the picture cards in our regular playing cards, just as we see the jokers and kings and queens in our playing cards. We also see picture cards or personality cards in our tarot deck. So we see 4 cards, namely the kings, then the queens, the knights and the pages. We see each of these 4 cards in each of the 4 suits. So 4 into 4 makes 16 quote cards. So friends, out of the 78, the tarot deck, which comprises of 78 cards, we have seen that 22 are major arcana, then 4 into 10 is 40, 4 suits, 10 cards each, that is 40 minor arcana, and then within that we also have the 16 quote cards. So friends, that is the basic structure of our tarot deck. In today's video, we will understand what these quote cards are. So we will get an introduction to what they mean, how to read them, etc. And then we will further get into details of each card in each individual video for pertaining to each of the 16 cards. And then we will also understand reversals of each of these cards and how to read them in a tarot reading. So friends, when we talk about these 4 kinds of quote cards, we look at the king. We know what the personality of each of these is. The king is the fountainhead of any kingdom. He is the one who gives the order. So kings in the tarot deck, the quote card kings, basically represent people or the process of giving orders, starting things, being the fountainhead. But friends, the king wears the crown, and in the head he is always the king. He does not get down there and get the work done. He just gives the order, but the work cannot get initiated without the king. So how does the work happen? It is the queen that makes it happen. She is the one that makes the plan real. The king has made the plan. Now it is the queen who will start off with the execution. However, the queen will not execute it herself. So who is the one who is executing it? It is the knights that are executing the plan. So the knights can be likened to the doer, or we can say that the king has the mission, the queen takes the orders and passes them on, but the mission is actually being physically or mentally or howsoever being accomplished by the knight. It is the knight who is the doer of the mission. He actually takes the job or the mission out of the fort walls and actually gets it done and executed. What we are left with, friends, are our pages. So when the order is given by the king and the making it real part is taken care of by the queen, and she passes it on to the knights who actually do the stuff, but what actually the development that is taking place, that development, the new development, is represented by the pages. So the pages are our new development, our new ideas, etc. Friends, this is a rough outline of what each of the four quote cards is. It's a very brief introduction. By no means are they limited to just this. There's a lot more. We will get into the details of it in just a little bit. We will also get into the details of it. We will really get into the depth of it in our individual videos. But a couple of things to remember here is that there are 2 male and 2 female court cards per suit. The king and the knights are our male court cards, and the queens and our pages are our female court cards. Now the pages are also in certain decks called as the princesses. Even though the pages are shown as being male, they are taken as the female court card. Now when we talk about the male and the female court cards, we do not by any means we do not refer to, don't understand it as being restricted to a male or a female. No, understand it instead as a male or a female energy. So the kings represent masculine energy, the knights represent masculine energy, or the masculine aspects of people, rather than actually being limited to signifying men in a reading. The same goes for the 2 female court cards, the queens and the pages. They refer to the feminine aspects, the feminine energies. They may represent men also, men of those aspects, men who are carrying those aspects of the queens or the pages. This aspect will become clearer in just a bit, friends. Let us come down to the meaning of the quote cards in general. Friends, the reason why most people find quote cards very challenging is due to the multiple possibilities of interpreting quote cards. They have multiple meanings. We had seen that in the major arcana and the minor arcana, a card has got a picture which shows something, and anything and everything that you can think of in terms of meaning of the card is shown as the card, shown on the card in some form or the other. So even let's say, for example, we say the Ace of Swords representing victory, that sword, the crown, the victorious garland from the crown, all that shows victory on the card itself. But friends, what happens in the quote cards is that you do not see any such thing. You only see one person standing there holding something in hand. Now what is that something in hand? They are holding one of the suit elements in their hand, namely our cup, sword, pentacle, wands. They'll be holding one of the element in their hands. So when you look at the 16 quote cards, for a newcomer it is very confusing that what is the difference between these 16 code cards and how do I memorize what each one of these means, because there are so many meanings attached to each one. So two things. One, because you do not see anything on the card, it is confusing. I'm sorry. The second, because they mean multiple things. Now, what are these multiple things? First, code cards represent people in the reading other than the querent himself. So, for example, let's say the querent asks a question. Let's say the querent asks, "This is the situation at my workplace. Will it get resolved or not?" And in the reading, 2 or 3 code cards come up. They could represent people involved in the situation. For example, they could represent the boss. They could represent some colleague, a junior, a teammate, irrespective of the gender. So people other than the querent. Second, they could represent an aspect of the querent's personality. So for example, let's twist the same question around and understand. Let's say the querent says that, "Why am I facing this problem at work? What is going wrong?" And a certain code card comes up. For example, let's say the Page of Swords comes up. We can make out that the person has either been severely critical or sarcastic, has said something to someone, is probably not taking care of what he is or she is saying to their teammates or superiors, because of which this problem is arising. So the code cards can represent an aspect of the querent's personality, either positive or negative. Third thing, when we talk of an aspect of querent's personality, then 2 important things that come up here is the feelings and the thoughts of the querent. So they can represent the feelings and thoughts of the querent. Sometimes, friends, they could also represent feelings and thoughts of someone other than the querent if the question asked does signifies it. Apart from these 2 things, code cards can also represent events in a person's life, and they can further signify messages, new opportunities, or guidance or advice. So there are multiple things which code cards can represent. None of them are explicitly shown in a visual manner on the code card, thus making them very challenging to understand. Also, because when we ask a question and we draw out a code card in response, in the beginning, the beginner tarot card reader does not understand whether to take it as an event happening, whether to take it as a feeling, a thought, part of the personality of the querent, or to figure out that okay, this code card is representing maybe I've seen it representing a mother-in-law, a sister-in-law, or boss, or anybody under the sun. So people in the querent's life in that given situation. I'll just like to wind up this video with a tip on how to understand which of the meanings the code card could be trying to tell us in a reading. 1. Look for the clue in the question of the querent itself. So let's say my question is that related to an event, then there's a good likelihood that the code card is referring to an event. Similarly, if it is about a general question about people, then probably people. So when you try and understand the question, you will understand which aspect of the code card to read. On the other hand, the second way of understanding which aspect to read is to look for the cards other than the code cards. They will give us some indication, some way or the other. Friends, in the beginning, I used to, when I had started learning tarot, I started doing my readings only with the major arcana. After that, when I was learning the minor arcana, I used to do my readings only with the minor arcana. Then I combined the two. For a very long time, I continued with these two, and once I felt that I was quite sure with the major arcana and the minor arcana, then I started to introduce the court cards in my reading. That also not as part of the complete reading. I used to take them as assistants. So for example, I've asked a question, I'll keep the major and minor arcana separate, and I'll keep the court card separate. And I used to not have confidence, so I would draw out one court card separately for each question, or maybe in support to one pile or something like that, until the time I felt that I was comfortable enough with the court cards also individually to be able to combine the whole pack and allow the cards to come up at random as they wished. So friends, you can also find your own way to incorporate the court cards in your reading. Take your own time, howsoever you feel comfortable. There is no right or wrong way to do it. And one more thing, do not leave out the court cards altogether, because the very fact that they have so many meanings, you can very well guess that they give a huge amount of information which the major and the minor arcana by themselves are not able to give, because aspect of a person's personality or people, then when it represents a person, then it is telling us about what kind of person they are and how we could deal with them. Events can still be understood with major and minor arcana, but these two things, even messages, friends, that is also a very important thing. So these 3-4 things, feelings, thoughts, and these kinds of things are very important information which we will not get from the major and minor arcana. So okay, pick them up when you're comfortable, but do pick them up. Don't leave them out altogether, otherwise you will end up missing out on a lot of important information in your readings. Friends, I hope you have understood what the court cards are about, at least briefly. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comments section below. And now let us move on to our videos, where we will understand in detail what each of these court cards means in itself and in a reading, and how to interpret the court cards. We have one video dedicated to each court card. So come friends, let us move on to those videos.